and when sat across from two investigators who were telling him that his wife faked her own kidnapping by calling her ex, he has no reaction, as if he was expecting this. He nods along with what the investigators are saying and just accepts what they are saying completely. It reminds me of another one of Sherri's exes, who in March of 2022 stated he knew she was lying about being kidnapped from the moment he heard it on the news.
He dated Sherri Papini and says he knows firsthand that she's a world-class fantasist.
She's a compulsive liar. She would, not talk to you for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden there'd be some fantastical story about what happened.
Shaheen Davari says he dated the mom when she was a 20-year-old youth counselor. Get this, he says he was just 15.
In retrospect, sure, tons of red flags, right? That she was a counselor that was going out with a 15-year-old kid.
Now 35, the professor of communications says Sherri's lies were never ending. For example, she kept insisting she was a skilled surfer.
I surfed all the time when I was 15, 16 years old. It's something that I really enjoyed doing, and she told me that she surfed as well. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't go surf, and she had to have her surfboard that was at her house but didn't have any pictures.
He says there was also a mystery medical condition.
She was faking a heart condition at one point, and eventually, not only me, but a bunch of people figured out that that was not true.
What did you think when you heard that Sherri Papini was kidnapped?
I was like, there's no way. She's fine. I promise you she's fine. There's just no chance that she got kidnapped.
Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. 6 months ago, on March 20th, 2022, I published a video, The Real Life Gone Girl, the case of Sherri Papini. The video was the product of days of research and investigation, going into all of those who were involved with Sherri throughout her life, including Cameron Gamble, a man who used what he believed to be a real criminal case to promote his own fraudulent business. The video was an in-depth look into the case of the California self-appointed supermom who orchestrated her own abduction, seemingly because she was tired of her life. That video also covers all the evidence that had come out against her and her long history of making up stories about her own life in order to gain attention. This included, but is not limited to, her faking being a victim of a race-related attack, pretending to have multiple different medical issues, and claiming that she was the victim of multiple abusive relationships. In one instance, Sherri hit herself in the face with a Wii remote and appeared to injure herself. At the time, she laughed off the injury, saying of how she was such a klutz and couldn't be trusted to walk on her own 2 feet. However, in the days that followed, multiple people who were close to her recalled how she changed the story, stating that her loving, faithful husband, Keith, attacked her. She told the story to multiple people, including people who had been present at the time she actually became injured, unaware that they knew she was lying. But that was just the type of person Sherri was. She constantly needed the kind of attention that came from being seen as fragile and helpless. She greatly enjoyed being viewed as a meek, defenseless person who needed to be coddled by those around her, and in 2016, she attempted to gain the attention she had grown so accustomed to by faking her own kidnapping with the help of her ex-boyfriend, James. She convinced James that she was in a loveless, unfaithful, and toxic marriage, and begged him to save her from it. She told James that Keith broke her jaw and would regularly threaten her life, and James stepped in, getting his friend to rent a car, driving 8 hours to her neighborhood, and picking her up to come live with him in his apartment. And for nearly 3 weeks, she hid out in his small apartment, watching as her husband and kids cried on the news, begging for her safe return. The video itself is about an hour long, and if you've never heard of this case, or are unfamiliar with the story, I would recommend you watch that video first. The video currently stands at a little bit over 800,000 views, and it's my 10th most watched video overall, which I'm extremely proud of. I also personally believe that that video is the best on this channel, but that's my own bias. This video will serve as a part 2 to that one, as yesterday at the time of recording, the FBI has released the interrogation footage from when Sherri was confronted about her crimes, alongside her husband, Keith. If you're familiar with my channel and you've seen the past breakdown videos I have done on Anthony Todd, Diane Downs, and Nancy Brophy, then you're more than familiar with the type of perpetrator who believes that they're the smartest person in every room. These people believe they can outsmart anyone who they come up against, and that they can find a reasonable answer to any question. They come across as antagonistic, due in part to their inflated egos, and consistently talk down to those around them as if they know better. Despite Sherri being corrupt in a similar fashion, she's not quite the same as they are. In stark contrast, Sherri is the type of predator who gets through their life by feigning victimhood. She is the kind of person who knows how to make themselves seem small and weak to those around her, who can start to cry at the drop of a hat, and who weaponizes their perceived fragility to compel people to protect them. She tells people falsehoods, all centered around her being put upon by an outside force, so that a knight in shining armor can pick her up and save her from the ashes. She is constantly looking to be pitied and cared for by the world. And up until this point in her life, her lies have mostly been satiated and ignored. With that in mind, as we watch this interrogation, watch as Sherri tries to gain the sympathy of the investigators. Watch how she will, at multiple opportunities, try to make herself look as fragile as possible, so that they will go easy on her. And watch as every attempt fails, which forces her to admit what she has done.
Okay. So if you want Keith to leave, I'll ask Keith nicely to leave. If you don't want Keith to leave, then he can sit here and
let's
listen
press
to
on.
you,
We'll press on.
and we'll move on to the next stages. But I want to give you that opportunity first. But obviously everything's fearful. If you tell him to leave and what I'm going to say is benign, then we can pull him back in the room. Like, hey, Keith, come back in. This is what we talked about. So that fear of him wigging out. Why is she trying to hide something from me? There isn't. If you can help me.
Yeah, there's no trick here. We're just trying to make sure that you're as comfortable as talk as you can be to talk to us truthfully.
They're asking you. They're not asking me. Obviously, I would want to be here, and whatever needs to come out.
And you can change your mind in the future too if you
But no
want to
matter
change
what,
it.
it's going to get out. So,
Like I said in the beginning, you're free to go. So if you wanted to chat with them privately, that's fine too. But we want to talk to you.
And we can leave the room, give you guys the room for a couple minutes. This next stage of things could be benign, could be like, we forgot to tell you this, or oh yeah, all of these things make sense now. I could tell you the puzzle that makes it all come together, or I can tell the puzzle that crashes everything apart. I don't know what that piece is, honestly. All I know is facts. All I know is certain specific items that will either tear the castle down or is going to build the castle up. And I don't want to tear the castle down and not give you the ability to then fix your own castle. Even if it's just a small thing here or it's the whole castle, I want you to be able to choose that. So we can step out of the room, let you guys talk, because I don't know what information I'm going to do, if it's life-changing news or if it's, oh yeah, everything's fine. I just don't know what it is. Usually, right, we show the pictures because everybody's invested in this picture. Keith do the drawings. Keith's the one who gave this stuff. So Keith has always been a part of your memory for small details. And that's why Keith's been in here this whole time. And that's why.
He makes me feel safe in you.
Well, if he makes you feel safe too, we can continue on.
Go
And then you can
Can I
change your mind.
talk to him?
Absolutely. And again, I just don't know what the pieces are. So if I would say, hey, this is going to bring the whole world down, I'd tell you, it's going to bring the whole world down. And then we need to talk alone. Or I would suggest we talk alone. But that's completely up to you guys because I don't know.
I just want to talk.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Sherri doesn't want Keith to stay in the room, but she cannot say that for multiple reasons. For those of you who watched the original video, you know what a fervent supporter Keith had been of Sherri up until this point. Where Sherri became a recluse who never appeared in the media following her rescue, Keith would do multiple public appearances and interviews, often talking about how he believed his wife, and those who cast a doubt upon her were terrible people. Many speculated that they wanted the financial benefit of being a part of crime shows, but Sherri didn't want to further implicate herself or mess up her already complicated story. Keith went on True Crime Daily and other shows covering her case, detailing how his wife would never fake a crime against herself and crying over the immense strife the entire ordeal put on their family. In one instance, he labeled those who believed Sherri's story didn't make any sense as being disgusting, drama-hungry vultures, and to many, it seemed that he refused to believe that anything she was saying could be wrong. This blind support led many to believe that Keith was not just a supportive husband who loved his wife too much to see what she had done, but that he had somehow been involved in the caper. However, if he had been, she would have no issue having him in the interrogation room with her. But as we can clearly see, that is not the case. Sherri and Keith know that they were brought in because the investigation uncovered new evidence, and this alone would have her shaking in her boots. Either the investigators found two Latina women who matched her original description, who they falsely believe took part in the crime, and need Sherri to identify them so they can move forward, or, more likely, they found the mountain of evidence she left in her wake, showing that she was picked up by her ex-boyfriend who she hung out with for a short while. It's a lose-lose situation for Sherri, and her mind would be racing to try and find a way out of this. Not only that, she wants to know which of the two possible scenarios it could be privately. That way she can cater her own story to fit whatever happened to Keith. She would no doubt want Keith to leave the room so she could figure out what exactly they had on her. But she can't ask him to leave, because doing so would signal to him that there's something she doesn't want him to know about the case, which at this point could only mean that she lied. Keith has staked his entire reputation on her honesty, something even she was not willing to do, and asking him to leave to not be a part of this interview would confirm that she had lied to him, even if nothing came from this. Sherri also knows that if the investigation uncovered undeniable evidence that she lied about the kidnapping and left her family just to hang out with an ex-boyfriend for attention, that her marriage would be over. Not only that, but her reputation would be unsalvageable, leading her to not being able to find a job, date, or really move on with her life. The life that she built for herself would be over, and that she would publicly be branded as the worst kind of person. The investigators asking Sherri if she wants Keith to stay or go at the beginning of the interview is purposeful, because it tells her that they are about to say something that he probably won't want to hear, which would make her believe they probably know about her ex-boyfriend, and speed up the interview a considerable amount.
You need to stop what you're doing and tell me the truth. I don't like anything that's yeah, whatever.
As I mentioned previously, Sherri's adept at manipulation, but her speciality is using her emotions to generate sympathy. This entire time, she has been hunched over and trying to dwarf her already small frame. Keith has already stated he doesn't know why she is holding back, doesn't appear to want to help the investigation, and seems aloof. And the first audible thing we hear from Sherri after the officers leave the room is her crying. Regardless of what she is saying, she is attempting to get Keith on her side by appearing to be in distress. That way, he will want to protect her from the consequences of her own actions. Up until this point in her life, this method has worked. Let us continue.
Why? I don't give a shit about that. I don't want them to find her. I don't want them to find her. I don't want her to be arrested. I don't want to press charges on her. I don't want to find her.
Explain to me right now.
I don't know. I don't want them to find her. You're not listening
But
to
tell
me.
me why.
Because she saved my life.
But tell me, honey, there's obviously something going on. There's obviously something. Tell me this is going to be really bad.
Look at how you're being right now. I am fucking with you.
No, I'm not gonna be.
I don't want them to find her. I don't want to press charges, and I don't want to go down that road.
But you tell her.
I don't want to go down that road. I don't
Tell
want
me
to
why.
arrest her because she saved my life, and she's the reason why I get to hold my children every single day.
this, you don't want to get it.
I don't want them to
But when you
fucking
murder,
murder her. I do. I don't want them to arrest her
why?
because she saved my life.
So you don't press charges. They still need to find out who it is. No matter what happens, you think just sits here. This comes out and they find the house. It's over. Whatever happened is over. And it doesn't matter what you say. The girl's gonna get in trouble. So you need to tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. If you don't want to press charges, then that's up to you.
I don't think I can do that.
You're not making sense to me. To the point where I'm getting scared now. So you need to tell me what's going on immediately.
Sherri quickly dropped the crying and the tears in an alarmingly quick speed, most likely because she realized that Keith wasn't being swayed by them. She is now employing her second line of defense, which is her children. If you cannot hear the conversation taking place, Sherri is stating that she doesn't want the investigation to continue and doesn't want law enforcement to find the woman who kidnapped and released her, because, according to her, it's because of that woman she is still alive and she can hold her kids. She is trying to once again appeal to Keith's emotions. During and after her kidnapping, Keith's public statements about his children were all incredibly emotional, as any loving parents would be. He obviously loves his kids very much, and her bringing them up in this fashion is meant to serve as a sort of smokescreen for the actual issue. Keith is rightfully confused as to why Sherri would not want to get an abusive kidnapper off of the street. This is a person who helped brand her and inflicted her with so much trauma, she stated she can barely leave her home without experiencing a severe panic attack. However, now, she wants to defend this woman. She doesn't want to stop this person from hurting other people, because in this instance, she did the right thing. To any rational person, this wouldn't make sense. But had you made up the entire crime for attention and accolades, then we're led to believe that the very real investigation into your entirely fake crime resulted in a real person being accused, you would probably think that letting karma take its course in this case would be entirely normal. Interestingly enough, Keith continues to push Sherri, telling her she isn't making sense and her line of reasoning is nonsense, and she is starting to get agitated. From all we have seen of Keith up until this point, he has always been her rock and believed her every word before it had a chance to leave her mouth. He has never shown any indication that his wife could have conceived of this lie herself and told the world she is innocent. This kind of combative nature would be seen as somewhat of a betrayal to her.
Yeah. Well, I can talk to you on the phone later. Thank you. Do you want me in the room or not?
And obviously,
Hopefully you've had a chance to chat briefly.
the fears,
Later, maybe. But I'd rather you just answer the question.
nothing that I'll say to you, I won't eventually tell him if you want me to.
Do you want me to just tell him what your fears are?
We would love to hear what your fears are, because we want to be able to address them as best we can.
Why can't you just answer the question? At this point, Keith no longer believes Sherri's original version of events, based on the fact that she is unwilling to cooperate with the investigation, and he is completely shut down to her. For 8 years, Keith has been by his wife's side, and she has gone through trauma therapy for what she said happened to her, and he has believed every word. In one of the first interviews he did after Sherri was found, he stated that she often wakes up crying, and it's hard for her to accept physical affection anymore. You can only imagine what kind of things Sherri has stated she wanted to have happen to the people who had done this to her, and how this false trauma would have affected their relationship. Keith's life was forever changed, most likely in very negative ways. and to now hear his wife no longer wants to help in the investigation, all because she believes she owes her life to the person who kidnapped her, is beyond stupid, and he knows that. He wipes a tear away from Sherri's face and puts a hand on her knee for a brief moment, but this will be the last piece of comfort or affection he will give to her. Immediately after, he moves his chair back and away, physically distancing himself from the woman he so adamantly defended in the past.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you're in the driver's seat right now.
I think it's easier to control things once you know what the information is, to be honest with you. Sure. So I can tell you what it is, say what it is when Keith leaves, and then you can say yes or no, whether or not you want him in there for the rest of it.
Right now, he's just, am I in the room or am I out of the room? So that's the.
And I'm to the point where if you want him here, we'll just go on with the conversation.
As long as you're not interrupting or causing a disturbance.
I'll stay over here.
But if he steps out, I can say a name, and then you can choose whether you want him in here for the rest of it or not. It's completely up to you. Or I can just continue on, and again, like I said, I wanted you to always have control over certain aspects of stuff. We're not to a point where anybody's going to jail yet. We're not to a point of anything like that. We're just still at the talking stage. We're at the control stage.
You seem scared, Sherri.
No, it's not scary.
What is it?
Sherri is stalling. She doesn't know what to do or say because she doesn't know what the investigation has uncovered. She doesn't know if she has been found out or if she will be implicating an innocent woman in her crimes. And both scenarios would inevitably have two very different reactions from Sherri, but based on her answers to Keith, she is likely thinking it's the latter option, as the investigators have been cordial towards her. The two interviewers have been consistently talking the entire time, making sure that Sherri's mind doesn't have a chance to stop and parse out the information being told to her. They have been repeating nearly the same thing for 10 minutes now, phrasing it in different ways so that she doesn't get a moment to think before responding, and she is now attempting to get her wits about her, all through pretending to be overcome with emotion. Sherri isn't crying so hard she can't speak. She's trying to regain control of the situation through her tears, and it's not working. Notice how no one, not even Keith, comforts her in this moment. This is potentially the first time that Sherri has had this happen to her. Usually there is someone around her who are showering her with love and support, telling her that it's okay and everything will be fine, and asking if she needs water, a tissue, or a hug. But there's none of that here. However, this tactic will likewise fail, as we are about to see. Let's watch.
When you don't answer, Sherri, it makes me concerned because I want to hear what your answers are, and I want to be able to understand.
The only way to control things is for us to know.
I don't want you to find her.
We're not going to find her.
She's the reason why I get to see my children every day.
I agree, but we're not going to find her.
She's the reason? What do you mean by that?
She means the younger one let her go. Right? That's what you're referring to? We're not going to find her. And we can just skip to the rock into the water and ruffle up the pond if we want to now. Again, this is your last this is the last time if you want to do this alone or with Keith. Keith's been through this also on a different level. So I'm ready I'm ready to move on and throw the dart and throw the rock and see what happens to the water. But Sherri, look at me. What do you want?
I don't want her to get in trouble.
She's not going to get in trouble.
If you were the victim of horrific abuse for weeks on end, and the investigators assigned to your case told you that you were never going to find that person, you would be angry. Had Sherri been attacked and brutalized the way that she said, hearing this would be devastating, and you would demand answers. What do you mean you're not going to find the person who chained me up to a pole in their closet and didn't feed me for weeks? Are they dead? Am I never going to get justice? What the fuck is your problem? All of these would be a reasonable response, because what he said would be incredibly heartbreaking, had she been a real victim. But her lack of response here, and her refusal to acknowledge that he's dismissing the idea of her ever getting justice, is a huge red flag. Please take notice of Keith's posture and positioning. He is leaning back in his chair, away from Sherri. His arms are folded, closed off, and he is not offering Sherri any sort of support. Again, since the beginning of the interview, Keith seemed to understand that whatever happened, it was Sherri's doing, and he has emotionally shut down. But it's about to get much worse.
So the DNA came back to James Reyes. Your
The
ex.
DNA that was on you belongs to James Reyes.
The picture, and can I get the picture? The picture of the table is James Reyes' little brother who died recently. We talked to him. He's been on a polygraph. We talked to everybody around him. We have the rental agreements, phone rental, the car rental agreements. We have everything that says that he said he told the truth.
That's James' brother, deceased Nick.
So everything, you've told us so many truths in this situation. The reason why you can describe the room is because you stayed in the room in the dark for hours, for days on end. The reason why you lost so much weight is because you stopped eating. The reason why you got a rash on your arm was because you cleaned his house. The reason why the brand is because he went to the store, bought the branding tools, and branded you. The reason why your nose was broke is because of a hockey stick. I know all of those things, and I know there was no sex. I know all of that because he passed a polygraph test. That said, it's not an abduction. She asked me to come get her. No!
If you have the time, I encourage you to watch the last clip multiple times. First paying attention to Sherri, then paying attention to Keith, as both are incredibly interesting. Let's start with Sherri. Sherri's first reaction is to look between the interviewers, going bug-eyed to show surprise, then to look over at Keith for some sort of support or acknowledgement of what they are hearing. She is looking for a horrified expression, anger, confusion, something that she can mirror, but instead, she sees nothing of the sort. On some level, she is expecting some kind of comfort, because they're being told she was kidnapped by her ex, which she can work with. But Keith is still leaning back in his chair, cut off from the situation, so she adjusts. She repositions herself in her chair, hunches over more, buries her face in her hands at what she is hearing, and begins to rock back and forth. She frantically looks between the photographs on the table, feigning confusion and shock, and she quite earnestly takes on the appearance of a child who hurt themselves on the playground and is crying for their parents. But it's not working, and no one in the room is comforting her. No one is holding her hand, giving her space and comfort, which is the antithesis of what she wants. As for Keith, there is no visible reaction on his side, which is startling. Keith and Sherri have been together for years. They should, by all accounts, have an amazing marriage that has gone through some trials and tribulations, but has come out on the other side stronger. And when sat across from two investigators who were telling him that his wife faked her own kidnapping by calling her ex, he has no reaction, as if he was expecting this. He nods along with what the investigators are saying and just accepts what they are saying completely. It reminds me of another one of Sherri's exes, who in March of 2022 stated he knew she was lying about being kidnapped from the moment he heard it on the news.
He dated Sherri Papini and says he knows firsthand that she's a world-class fantasist.
She's a compulsive liar. She would, not talk to you for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden there'd be some fantastical story about what happened.
Shaheen Davari says he dated the mom when she was a 20-year-old youth counselor. Get this, he says he was just 15.
In retrospect, sure, tons of red flags, right? But she was a counselor that was going out with a 15-year-old kid.
Now 35, the professor of communications says Sherri's lies were never ending. For example, she kept insisting she was a skilled surfer.
I surfed all the time when I was 15, 16 years old. It's something that I really enjoyed doing, and she told me that she surfed as well. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't go surf, and she had to have her surfboard that was at her house but didn't have any pictures.
He says there was also a mystery medical condition.
She was faking a heart condition at one point, and eventually, not only me, but a bunch of people figured out that that was not true.
What did you think when you heard that Sherri Papini was kidnapped?
I was like, there's no way. She's fine. I promise you she's fine. There's just no chance that she got kidnapped.
Keith, like her ex, isn't surprised by the news. He's not angry at the police for accusing her of this. He simply nods along, as if this is something he had been expecting. From this point onwards, the investigators are not going to stop talking, or give Sherri any sort of respite to stop and think. She's searching for a way out, something to latch onto to make the evidence presented make sense with the story she has told for years. She needs to find some part of it that she can manipulate, but she can't quite focus on doing that when they continue to talk.
I rented a car. No. I drove up and picked her up. He passed the polygraph test, Sherri.
If that's not what happened, what did happen, Sherri?
I don't know. No, there's no way. It's James. There's no way. There's no way.
The DNA doesn't lie.
His DNA
was on you.
There's no way.
Robert saw you in the house while you were down there. While everything spun out of control, his cousin. Why everything ran out of control on the initial.
There's no way.
It's 100% Robert's or James's DNA.
We even collected blonde hairs from the room.
There's no way it's James. There's no way.
Tell me that it is.
Why are you saying it's not James? Why are you saying it's not?
He loved me.
What's up?
We were friends.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way.
And he came and got you because you asked him.
No.
When was the last time you had contact with James?
His brother died.
Brother died in 2017. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Was it before or after the abduction?
Before.
Before.
When was the last time you saw James?
Forever ago when I lived in Southern California.
So the last person-to-person contact you had with him was back in 2006? When you were living in Southern California?
I don't know.
So
Was it prior to your marriage?
It's him. There is no way it's him.
well, it is James.
The DNA tells us that it was his
Well-
DNA on you.
The DNA alone says it's him. And when we talked to him and confronted him with the DNA,
He told us what happened.
he 100% told us what happened.
He gave us details that nobody else would know.
And we can call him and we can all talk about it. But ultimately, can you look at me for a second? Ultimately, we put him on a polygraph like we did Keith. Keith was inconclusive, to be honest with you, on whether he was involved or not. But 100% James was telling the truth. The questions were, did Sherri ask you to come pick her up? He answered yes. That was the truth on a polygraph. We asked him if the two of you ever had sex. The answer was no.
During 2016.
During 2016, during the abduction, he said no. That was the truth. We asked him if you asked him to brand you. The answer was yes. And he passed the polygraph on all of those questions. He took us to the stores where he bought the chain. We talked to the friend who rented the car. The car that he rented drove over 900 miles in a day on the drop-off point.
Sure, I know this is a lot to take in.
All
But
of
it's not like we don't know the answers to these questions.
and the fear of Keith's reaction. Obviously, now he's in the room. The fear of media, the fear of all of these things are coming forward. They're in front of you now. The only way to get a hold of it, the only way for everybody to come together and heal, the whole community has to heal, is for us to be able to say, when we presented all of the evidence, all of the stuff that came forward, you told us the truth. You told us what happened. Because you did go in a dark room, that's true. You did lay in the back seat of a car, that's true. You did lose weight, you were branded, your hair was cut, you did have bruises all over. But how those bruises got there are because you did it and James did something. The reason why your nose got broke is because you held the hockey stick to your face and he forced it into your nose. The reason why the brand is in a straight line is because he did it. He described exactly where it was. He told us exactly how he did it, where he did it, how he did it. Only you and I and maybe 5 other people know where the brand was. He told me immediately. Robert told friends and family you were there. His mom knew that you were there because of course it went news and everybody knew you guys dated. Everybody knew you guys had a relationship. So when it happened, of course, family reached out to him. He told them, yeah, she was here. But it said it hurt her. I didn't hurt her. So,
What are you thinking, Sherri?
That doesn't make any sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
what actions doesn't make sense?
A lot of it doesn't make sense.
Can we talk about those?
No.
James' DNA was confirmed on your clothing. The 2 of you haven't seen each other in over a decade. You told me that you haven't been in his room, you haven't had contact with him in over 10 years. However,
You described his bedroom to a T.
and the DNA on you was still a vibrant piece of DNA. 10-year-old DNA dies. The DNA that was there specifically was non-seminal fluid, was seminal fractions. You got that from his house somewhere. So whether it was the bed that you were sleeping on, whether it was the couch, whether it was anywhere in there. When somebody would come to the door and be around the property, you would call James. James would call Robert, which is those 2 doors down. Robert would run people off the property. Robert told me all of that. James told me everything. So the only person that hasn't started telling us certain facts, there are certain facts that are true. When we were sitting there talking to James, there were so many truths that were a part of your story that it's hard to decipher the lies until we put it all together. Until he says, hey, how did you pick her up? I opened up the passenger side seat, I opened the door, you jumped in the back seat. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I don't know. It was weird. So are you calling James a liar? Are we not believing James what he told me?
No.
Sherri doesn't realize this because the investigators have been inundating her with new information for over 20 minutes now, and she can't focus on what's going on. But she just stated that James, the man that is saying she asked him to kidnap her, isn't a liar. The high level of stress that the investigators have placed on her has worn her down, leading to this admission, which she doesn't seem to know she gave.
I know you're scared.
Cannot believe that it is James.
I can't believe James told us the truth. That's what I can't believe. He passed a polygraph, Sherri.
So did Keith.
No, he didn't. He was inconclusive. And he was involved.
So James is involved. But I don't.
James picked you up. You called James to pick you up. You mailed him a letter with your address. You used a burner phone to call another burner phone for James to come and get you.
You're saying since your marriage you haven't called James?
No, I have called James.
Because earlier you said you had contacted James. Because phone records show that you do. You did. The phones don't lie, the DNA doesn't lie, Sherri.
His polygraph doesn't lie.
So you can go a couple different directions now.
His story.
I've already told you lying to me is a crime. So you walk out the store telling lies, and that's a crime.
I think we need my lawyer. This isn't making any sense.
What's not making sense, Sherri?
Again, Sherri looks over at Keith for emotional support but gets nothing. He physically turns away from her, and she goes back to trying to find a way to explain the evidence.
Parts that
That
don't
it's
make sense.
James.
No, the parts that don't make sense are that you're accusing two females who abducted you when it was James. The part that you were branded, James did it. He told me he did it. Who would sit there and say, I branded Sherri on her right shoulder blade? Who does that?
And told us how and showed us the letters that matched the brand.
Took us to the store and pointed out the letters. The problem is today's the case is resolved. Everything, the only things, well, how do we prove that you're telling us the truth? How do we prove that the truth is that two women took you, but I'm telling you it's a male? The fact that you were branded is true. The small fact is that you willingly laid down and did it versus being tied to a table. So we could do the polygraph and try to, whatever parts you're confused about.
Can you go? Is that what you said?
Can I talk to you outside real quick? Or wait?
That's fine. The fears of how out of control everything got, the fear of all these things is the reality.
When Keith asks to talk to one of the agents outside, Sherri begins to panic. She is trying to imply that James was involved with the case, that he was the mastermind behind everything, but she wasn't involved at all, and every other part of her story was true, which is obviously so ludicrous that no one would ever believe it. But again, she cannot admit wrongdoing, especially not in front of Keith. She is working hard to try and figure out a way to manipulate this in her favor, but still, the second interviewer keeps talking, refusing to give her a chance to find her bearings. She repositions herself again, pulling her legs up under her, going into fetal position on the chair, attempting to elicit any kind of pity she can get. The average person would see someone sitting like this, crying, holding their head, and immediately think they need help, and help them. But it's entirely ineffective, namely because the investigation had already uncovered years of evidence of her doing the same thing with other people.
And the only people that can slow the train down is you and I. You put yourself through this so when you came forward you can tell certain stories. You missed. You couldn't control the DNA that we found. You couldn't control when we talked to James, he'd tell us what happened. The story always was hard for anybody to understand. The tragedy that the community went through, the events that unfolded, the fear now of what it all means. But there's without a doubt, James's DNA was on you. The likelihood of being an ex-boyfriend is a problem.
No.
It's astronomical. Then you add in, when we go talk to people who've never even heard of us, when we say, hey, what's going on here, they knew that you were at the house. All of them never came forward.
No.
No what? Do you want to call James? This was a long road. I I had no idea where he was going to take me. But right now, continuing and saying that 2 girls took you is a lie to Peter. It's just a lie. Because we were able to prove it with evidence. With a rental car agreement, person driving to 1,000 miles in a day, the DNA on you, and him passing a polygraph, it's 3 legs to a table it can stand.
He's going to wait out there. Now's your opportunity. Based on your reaction previously, what you're telling me is you did not call James and ask him to come get you? Is that what you're saying? Because if that's what you're saying, I have to understand that. There are things he says that we can corroborate, and whatever you say, we're going to try and corroborate. But right now, I'm not sure what you're saying. You're just saying you can't believe it's him. And you're saying you don't understand. But there are details he provided. We know you were in his house. We collected hairs from that bedroom. That's going to have DNA on it. We already have your hairs that you left with your cell phone when you were picked up.
You have my DNA, obviously.
So that's not going to lie either. The descriptions you provided are that room and that house to a T, except it's not a gravel driveway. And it's not elevated. And there's not 2 women who live there.
But James lives there.
James lives there.
You know James lives there.
So you might as well get it out of your head that James is not involved, because James is clearly involved. And James already told us he's the one that did the brain.
That's something that he admitted to mayhem. He admitted to a felony, you can put him in prison over.
Well, it doesn't jive. So now it's your opportunity to say, were there issues between you and Keith? Is that why you needed to leave? I mean, we read your text message. We're already aware of some issues, but enlighten us if that's the case. If there was a valid reason for you to leave, let me know what that was.
James said you had your jaw broken by him. And that's why he came and got you, because you were in an abusive relationship.
You love my husband.
So, were you in an abusive relationship with him?
Again, Sherri had a history of telling people that she was in an abusive situation when that was not the case. This started in childhood, with her telling multiple people her home life was abusive and she was being assaulted by her parents. This then continued with every relationship she was in. She would make up stories about how she had been assaulted by her ex, or that she was being stalked, in order to gain favor with her partners. These men would feel the need to protect her, to move her into their home and immediately declare their love and loyalty to her because she had gone through so much trauma. By making herself the victim, she wouldn't have to get a job or deal with any weighty responsibilities that other people did, and she had grown accustomed to that. She had done this with Keith, who by all means just seemed like a normal guy who worked at Best Buy and loved his wife.
Have you told other people in your life that, like China, that Keith has abused you in the past when that wasn't true? China told me that day 2, where there was an incident at a party that you got hurt playing, like, I don't know, Wii or Pictionary or something, and then you told other friends that Keith hurt you. When there was witnesses at the party that said that you got hurt during a party. But then you go tell James that you were being hurt, you were being abused, and you couldn't come forward because Keith has friends in law enforcement. If all of that, is that true? Has Keith ever been abusive towards you?
We are not talking about my husband. I love my husband.
So why leave? Is James lying to us?
I can't believe my husband. I want to be with my children. I would never leave my children.
But you did leave them permanently. You came back to them. Ultimately,
No.
You left them every day at daycare, so it's not like hey. And James talked about that decision when you were driving down, how hard that was. You left at 10 o'clock knowing that Keith was going to get home late knowing you were going to leave the kids at daycare, and how much that tore you up on the drive down. You told us that. Then things got out of
James
control.
and I talked about that. We did talk about that before.
When
When I went out of town from work.
What happened?
I was talking to other guys. Oh my god, why did I do that?
Like when you were in Eureka, you give them a call, just start chatting with them, told them some of your problems. And when did it turn from just chatting to this plan to get away?
No.
you were getting a hold of Donovan Mitski the night before.
Why did I do that?
We're trying to understand why you did that too.
We're trying to understand all of it.
I don't know how this is happening because I was doing that.
Doing
This
what?
is an awful choice. Talking to other guys that has got me here.
If you can't understand what Sherri is saying, she is stating that she did talk to James more recently than she told the investigators, but it wasn't to leave her life and her kids. It was to carry out an affair. She is trying to imply that the affair would have caused James to kidnap her due to being in love with her. That is so far-fetched that no one would ever believe it. If James had kidnapped her, why would she have tried to say 2 women did it? If it was because he was romantically obsessed with her, how is it that she never saw or heard him? If he was a part of it all, why did she cover for him? It's obviously false, but she is trying, once again, to gain favor with the investigators. She wants to admit fault for a lesser thing, cheating, so they believe that from this point, she is being honest.
So, what aspect are you saying? Like, how does talking to other people got you here? We've gotten over
my husband is the worst, and I made mistakes and I talked to other men that I shouldn't have.
but we took it a step farther this time.
This is a little different than just chatting with them. I appreciate you talking and being forthright about the other guys you were talking to. When did it turn into something more? Obviously, you never would have imagined that CNN in 2020 and Good Morning America would care about you wanting to leave Keith or wanting to teach him a lesson or wanting to get him in line.
No, I was just talking to James. I don't want to leave my husband. I love my husband.
How are you talking? How are you talking to James?
I don't want to leave my husband.
Sure. How were you talking to James? On your cell phone or another cell phone?
My work cell phone. I don't want to leave my husband. I don't want to leave my husband.
This was more like just a flirt.
What's your work cell phone number?
Remember?
What's that?
I don't remember.
How long were you guys talking?
I don't know.
Why would he rent a car and come and get you?
I don't know.
Well, if you don't know that, why would you get in the car and go down to Costa Mesa?
Those are all things we can verify, Sherri. The car rental, the fuel, the mileage, the calls from you to him, the burner phone, all that can be proven.
Horrible.
I don't think you're a horrible person, Sherri. I think things went a little sideways on you.
We started this conversation off that nobody knew what this was going to turn into. I didn't know that I'd have people stand on boxes in front of my office. That Keith would be on 2020.
My husband, I want my children. I'm stupid for talking to other guys.
But why did James come and get you? I know you guys were talking. I know you've said in the past that Keith has hurt you to other friends. Why tell him those details if that stuff's not true? It's one thing to talk. It's one thing to talk. It's another thing to say abuse is occurring. Everybody I talk to about James says he's the nicest person in the whole world. Yeah, he may be a hockey player, but he is the nicest person in the world. He's nice to a fault. I know lots of people. I don't know anybody I'd rent a car for and drive 9 hours for. Keith, James did that for you.
He thought he was helping you.
He never asked you why. He never questioned anything.
He never put reward money on the line.
He never asked for anything. He didn't ask for sexual relations. He didn't ask for a relationship after you. He didn't ask for anything. He's never even talked to you since.
And yet he stayed quiet until now.
And the only reason why he talked is because we have his DNA. That's the only reason why we got to his door. That's the only thing that led us to his closet. That's the only thing that led us to the bathroom. That's goofy. And that's the only reason why he started talking to us. Once he showed us the bedroom, and we started pointing out the holes in the wall, like, you used to have this boarded up, huh? And he said, yeah.
Sherri asked me to put boards up.
There's nobody's ever going to be able to answer why decisions were made.
Except for James. I don't understand.
You don't understand what? What parts are you not
Sherri,
understanding?
He even showed us, Sherri, he even showed us the letters that were used for the brand, the numbers. I have pictures of them right here. This is the set that was used.
What did the Bible verse mean to you?
How would he have known that?
Why did you pick that Bible verse? Did James pick the Bible verse? We need to be able to control the outcome and what's going to happen next. The only thing we know that's going to happen right now is what you can tell us and what you can shed light on, and for other people to be able to try to understand. If it was a mistake, it was a mistake. But at this point, not telling us what happened, not telling us the truth is another mistake. It's a mistake on top of a mistake. Right now, we can start over. We can leave without a dirty conscience, without the what's going to happen next. Right now,
deep down inside, Sherri, I know you know what's right and what you should do, and you should come clean.
Why did you ask James to come to get you? You asked Donovan the night before to come meet up with you. Everything happened at once. You were asking two.
Stupid thing to do.
The thing about it is we were able to prove that Donovan never came up here. But now we can prove that James did. We have records to prove it. Although you might not think it was a good idea now, 2020 hindsight. At the time, why did you ask him to come pick you up? Was that an I don't know? What's that?
Can't be James.
It is James. We can call
Sherri,
him.
the DNA doesn't lie. His DNA was on you. Your DNA is going to be in that room.
1 in septillion that it was James. I don't even know how many zeros septillion is, to be honest with you.
That's why, despite your description of how far you might have gone in the car, we already went down there. We knocked on his door. We took those pictures. He understood that the DNA didn't lie, so he came clean. Now it's your chance to do the same. And if you don't, you're going to be shaking your head later and say, I should have told him what happened.
Talk to me like that.
Like what?
There's so many fears right now that we can't even wrap our head around it. There's too many unknowns that we can't control. We can't control what the media is going to do. We can't control what everybody's going to think. The only thing we can control right now is to control that James told us the truth, and that's a yes or a no. What did James lie about? What did James lie to us about? Of the things I've told you.
I don't know, baby. I don't know. I just don't know. There's just no way it can be James. I just don't know. I don't know.
It is James. That's not even a question anymore.
We know you were in that room. That's already clear.
You described everything in the room.
What you're saying is it wasn't James that came and picked you up by the mailboxes? Is that what you're saying? There's still two females? Is that what you're saying, Sherri?
Yeah.
At the end of everything, you had to have known that this was going to come at some point.
I was talking to my mom.
What's that?
This is all my fault. I was talking to so many guys.
Well, we know
Such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, but then how did we get to Costa Rica? Or sorry, Costa Mesa? Or how did we get to LA? There's a big jump and a leap from talking to men to getting in a car with somebody. But that getting in a car with somebody is somebody you had a relationship with. He told us about the abortion. He told us about your guys' relationship. He told us about things that I don't know if you've ever told anybody about. He told us so many things. And he did it all for you. Nobody else. He got nothing out of this.
And you're welcome to go home, Sherri. But right now is your opportunity to tell us the truth. And
Can't be.
are you saying that it was two females that picked you up? What's that? Every time I ask that question, it seems like you don't answer it.
This can't be happening.
We sat in a room, you drew out two people on a sketch, Sherri. Are those two people the ones that took you? It's a yes or no.
I don't know.
Well, you were pretty clear when I asked you earlier, what did the younger one do? You said the younger one pointed a gun at you. She wasn't. It was just James. James was 2 hours late.
We have the rental records from 2016 for the vehicle that he used.
Why?
Because we went and looked for it because he told me.
Because I was talking to you.
That's clear. You were talking about it.
It's my fault because I was talking to him. I just can't.
We have to control what we can control.
No.
We're to the point. The younger female that you've always described, is she the one that pointed a gun at you? Is that true or not?
Oh no.
You do know. You told me earlier. So earlier today, when we were talking, I asked you what did the younger one do. You told me the younger one pointed a gun at you and let you go. That's what you said.
She let me go.
And you let yourself go. You let yourself out of the backseat. Never even said bye to James. Never a thank you, never a nothing. Just an out.
No.
Yeah, that's what James told me. Until you can start telling me that James is a liar and start pointing things out, James passed a polygraph.
This is my fault that I was talking to him. It's my fault that I was flirting with other men. It was such a stupid thing to do. I love my husband. I love my children.
That's understandable.
It's too stupid for
Here's the deal, though,
flirting with other
Sherri.
men.
Flirting with other men, not a crime. Lying to me today, yes, a crime. Big difference.
Telling your story of what happened to you isn't a crime.
And I know you're scared of what Keith is going to say and do, what's going to happen with you and your family. Those are real concerns. But we also need to understand the truth. And you're in the best position to give us that. You keep saying that it can't be him. The DNA doesn't lie. It's him.
You were talking to
And
him.
now's the opportunity for you to tell us.
I was talking to him. I was talking to him.
And we've
I
talked
started
about.
talking again. It was really nice.
Okay.
You started
That makes
talking
sense.
again what?
When her brother died.
Oh, sure.
And that makes sense. The problem we have is the actions after the talking, after the flirting. There was a big difference between talking on the phone and getting in a car with somebody. So are you saying that James got two females to kidnap you? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? So if James's DNA is on you,
I don't know.
are you? So either we're still saying the younger girl pointed a gun at you, or we're saying we don't know. You've already told me that today, that a younger girl pointed a gun at you.
You said you didn't want her to get caught. So are we still talking that the female let you go?
That's where we're at. And I don't know doesn't add clarity on simple questions, Sherri. A very easy question. Did James pick you up? You told me earlier that a girl pointed a gun at you. Is that detail? Which one's true? It's only one. Only one of those are true, Sherri. You've told both of them. I've told one. You've told the other. Which one's true? Does James need to go to jail for all the stuff that you asked him to do?
I did not ask for this.
No, nobody asked for this. Sherri, I believe you. Nobody asked for this. Nobody asked for ABC News to park out in your driveway.
There was no way you could have predicted that this was going to blow up into be as big as it was. Not even God thought it was going to turn into this big. Even when he first got the call, he didn't think that CNN and ABC and everybody was going to care.
I'm going to find Sherri in a couple of days because I found Donovan. I found some of the people you're talking to. I've never known about your work cell phone.
Stupid.
But we're beyond that small discretion. We've talked about that discretion. We've talked about Donovan, right? Remember?
So stupid.
We talked about Donovan.
So stupid.
Who picked you up? Was it James or was it a female that pointed a gun at you? Can you please answer that? You're shaking your head no.
I will not get. I'm not talking to you about that. I'm not going to get anybody in trouble. I've told you before. I do not want anyone to get in trouble.
Well, you're going to get yourself in trouble at this point. That's where we're at. So either James.
I didn't do anything wrong.
I know you didn't do anything wrong. Right now, you're not telling the truth, which is doing something wrong. That's where we're at. James put himself on a polygraph. Talked to FBI agents. He talked with Peter and I for 6 hours. He told us everything, Sherri. You told us so many truths because you put yourself through.
True.
They were true. You're absolutely
You
right.
don't want to talk about the women.
So, but the one.
You're saying that it's James.
No, I'm
We're
not.
saying James's DNA was on you. We know you were in that room at his house.
Then it was the woman. Then it was the woman.
Well,
Okay.
the
That's why we're asking you. It
Did the
wasn't
woman point a gun at you and put you in the car? Yes or no? Is that where we're at?
Don't remember.
You don't remember if a female pointed a gun at you and put you in the car? Is that what you're saying, Sherri?
I've always told you I don't remember getting in the car. I've always told you I don't remember getting in the car.
Correct. But did a female point a gun at you? Yes or no?
Remember.
Yes or no? It's not a remember thing. You've already told me that today.
You know who she is. I know you do.
It was always
You
key.
know who she is.
Yeah,
No,
the lady
you
we
don't.
showed you is another raise. No, I know James opened the door for you. Whether you want to forget how you got in the car, I'm okay with that. But you've already established today. That's why I asked you today. What did the younger girl do? You said she let me go and she pointed a gun at me. We didn't talk about how you got in the car. Right now I'm asking you. Did a younger female point a gun at you? Yes or no? What?
I know you know who she is. I'm not saying it. I don't want her to get in trouble.
She's not
I know
getting in trouble.
you know who she is.
You're getting in trouble.
I'm not. I didn't do anything.
Right. But right now, answer this one question. Did a female point a gun at you? Yes or no?
I am done speaking to you until I talk to a lawyer. I will not arrest her. I am with my children because of her.
I'm disappointed, Sherri.
I don't understand. There is no way that chance he loves me.
You did love me. I agree.
Sherri, if you want to talk to your attorney, that's fine. We can wrap this up. If you want to keep talking to us, that's a separate story, but you said you wanted to talk to your attorney, so like I said from the beginning, you're free to go and you can go. I would ask you one more question, just for your own welfare. Do you feel like harming yourself?
Welfare.
Do you feel like harming yourself?
No, I just knock my children and go home.
Okay. Well, you're free to go and do that.
Sherri invokes her right to have an attorney, something that she should have done in the beginning, especially with the knowledge that she's bold-faced lying to everybody. But she already made a number of interesting admissions. She admitted to speaking to James and multiple other men throughout her marriage. She admitted to lying about Keith ever assaulting her, and she admitted to lying to others about various injuries she had obtained throughout her life. If Sherri had pled not guilty in court, her lawyers would have no doubt tried to paint Sherri as a sympathetic character who would never lie about being abused. However, this very interview could be used as evidence directly against that notion. But let us continue.
If you change your mind and want to come forward and talk to us,
This is all my fault because I talked to other men. This cannot be.
you might have come and started talking to you.
This small snippet of footage is vaguely haunting, as Sherri immediately rights herself when the interrogation ends. She goes from being completely hunched over, shaking and sobbing, repeating that she can't believe her ex-boyfriend had any part of this, and that this all happened because she flirted with other men outside of her marriage, to sitting up, perfectly straight, wiping her eyes, grabbing her purse, and walking out as if nothing occurred. But still, there is more.
I don't know what to find out. You know what Keith is? Keith? I want to watch the Hollywood.
I'm the idiot husband that stayed around the whole time.
No, there's not. It's still, we can't tell you a lot, honestly. I don't know what I told Phil to let you know. Some of the details, some of the stuff coming out.
Can you, I mean, from my side, I feel like, my whole world's gonna flip upside down again. Why is that? Why am I always getting held out of things? Like, why can't you just hit me with it?
I did, I told
I
you.
know, yeah.
Because this happened Monday.
No, you're saying you can't tell me all this stuff.
It's still an ongoing investigation, so you're not going to find out answers. I mean, there's just, that's the way it is.
Obviously, can you help me, throw me a bone and then go, I mean, she made it up? Is that where we're going, right? Or is she trying to come up with a whole another?
We're not going to give you any additional details. Obviously, you heard the questions, so you can read through some of those and understand. You've seen some of the photos, so you know some of the investigative work
Obviously,
we've
you saw
done.
me. I was like, yeah, we found him.
And we did.
Yeah.
But you can also notice your reaction compared to her reaction.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's what I'm saying from my side. But now you're telling me, okay, you guys can go home now. Well, do you think I want her anywhere around my kids or around me at all at this point?
And again, we've talked a lot. I don't know what the next stages of this are. That's why
it's not us together. I tell you that one.
Whatever those decisions are, I don't know.
But we can all agree that she's not over there. Then obviously, if somebody can do something like that to their body and try to trick everybody that they're probably not fit to.
It was 4 years ago.
We can't get into that, but I would say obviously we are concerned about the welfare. We don't want any kind of domestic dispute between you two. We also don't want.
So give me a quick not legal advice. Give me from a sheriff. If I don't want her in my house tonight, what options do I have?
You have to get restraining orders. You have to get legal stuff.
Jesus. I'm gonna tell her she has to go to her sister's or something. I mean, she's not going to my house tonight, and I gotta call. The next stage of this, please give me the courtesy of telling me when you're gonna announce it, so I cannot be at my home.
Probably tonight.
Oh God, damn, you're going quick. Well, I thought you said it's ongoing now.
Well,
we gotta talk
about that, but
it's gonna happen quick.
I understand that. He was thinking tomorrow. It's like, okay,
you blew up everybody in LA. So there's a hornet's nest in LA.
Mm-hmm.
It only takes one person to go and say, hey, I know what actually happened. I want 10 grand. And now they run to LA news. It blows up without our control. So, and I don't know the strategy. We still have to. We had to get through this before we can get there. But this.
Is there anything you can tell me next? I thought you said you were going to tell me something when I came back in.
The person that we talked to down there is absolutely involved.
No, I know that. I know that. So I remember giving you guys that guy's number. So I thought.
So that's where we're at.
And then what did she say?
We're just going to ask you to be patient. Let it play out. I know it's going to be really hard, but it also makes it easier for you. The little kids aren't going to ask you as much as the media will.
No,
and the family members, your own family members.
No,
and you can look at them with a straight face and say, look, they're not telling me yet.
But like, even Kettle right now, I was like, well, shoot, you guys can give her a ride in the house. I don't even want her in my car right now.
I don't know what Kettle said.
That's what he told me.
I'm assuming we could arrange for her to get there if that's what has to happen.
Because I need to make some phone. If you're going to release it that soon, I'd like to call her.
I don't know what's going to happen. I can call you today. I'm going to go from this to another meeting, and that means I'll leave to another meeting, and that means I'll leave to another meeting, and then we'll be figuring stuff out.
Are you saying you want us to help you with transport for her?
I think so. I don't think. You got to give me a couple. I thought you guys were going to call me back in here with her.
Well, she has to leave, so she's free to leave if she wants.
So I think we'll talk, and she's probably not going to talk in here, so we'll probably go out to the car, and then I'll be like, I'm not going anywhere with you until.
If you guys want to check out the car and come back up and tell us if you need assistance, let us know.
You have my number.
I appreciate that. I think I'm handling pretty good. I didn't punch any walls or nothing.
We appreciate that.
I'm in shock. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Keith's complete disassociation from Sherri following proof being shown to him that she lied about her kidnapping has struck many as being odd. But this is a man who spent the majority of his adult life in a relationship with her. He would have had to deal with the repercussions of her lies for years, with many of his friends and family being told that he is abusive, broke her jaw, and assaulted her multiple times. On some level, he knew that she was capable of doing this. And the moment he was shown evidence, he made the decision that was right for him and his children. He immediately filed for divorce and custody over their kids, and seems to be doing all right. Before Sherri was sentenced to 18 months in jail, she made this statement to the court. Your Honor, I stand before you, humbled by this court, truly honored and grateful you are allowing me to speak. I am so sorry to the many people who have suffered because of me, the people who sacrificed for the broken woman I was, the people who gave willingly to help me in a time that I so desperately needed help. I thank you all. I thank the government for allowing the opportunity for this plea agreement. I thank my attorney team for fighting for me. I thank the many people who are still willing to help me on my long road ahead. And I thank you, Your Honor. You've seen so much dishonor laid before you here in this room, people are not willing to walk through the shame and say that they are guilty. I am not one of them, Your Honor. I am guilty of lying. I am guilty of dishonor. I stand before you willing to accept, to repent, and to concede. I trust in this court. I trust the officers handling my release, and I trust you, Your Honor, to see me, to hear me. What was done cannot be undone. It can never be erased. I am not choosing to stay frozen like I was in 2016. I am choosing to commit to healing the parts of myself that were so very broken. I am choosing to humbly accept responsibility. Thank you, sincerely, thank you. This was after her attorney had argued that Sherri should only be sentenced to 1 month in prison, as her poor public reputation, quote, feels like enough of a life sentence, unquote. So, not really humbly accepting responsibility, mostly shirking it. But that is where we are today. If you like this video, be sure to click the like button as it helps our videos out immensely. If you like true crime content and would like to see more of our videos, subscribe and leave a comment letting us know what video you would like to see next. You can also email me at dreading.official@gmail.com with any other video suggestions or information. With that said, have a great day and remember, stay safe.